This is Africa News Network First Fast Live. My name is Cindy Mabi. Welcome to ANN7 Prime. The NEC has put unity against the opposition about fighting internal battles in public. This saw President Jacob Zuma emerging stronger after a second attempt to unseat him at the ANC-NEC meeting. ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe says the party's top brass had analyzed the consequences of removing President Zuma and decided against it. Mantashe reiterated the party's position that its members of parliament will vote along the caucus line in the motion of no confidence against President Zuma. Mantashe also put it in perspective that the opposition's motion went beyond Zuma with the main aim of dislodging the ANC.
Regardless of whether a secret ballot is granted or not by the court, ANC MPs, as always, are expected to vote in line with the decision of the caucus of the ANC. We're reminding them of Rule 2517 of our Constitution, which defines an act of misconduct as acting on behalf or in collaboration with counter-revolutionary forces, political organization or party other than the organization or party in alliance with the ANC, in a manner contrary to the aims, policies and objectives of the ANC. Some calls, especially those made by the opposition, are not so much about removing the president, but rather dislodging the ANC itself from power. We are not saying that out of analysis. They verbalize it. It's not about the president, it's about the ANC itself. So we're emphasizing this point so that members of the ANC should never be fooled to think that it's only about one person. It is about the African National Congress. That's what all this is all about.
Now, while the ANC put a united front in front of the opposition, its stance on certain issues raised questions. The NEC's resolutions highlighted the ANC's self-contradicting positions on several matters, including state capture, the succession debate, and Brian Molefe's reinstatement.
Any people who are reviewing that report of the public protector, we are asking that those processes should be accelerated because they should not be used as an obstacle to the establishment of a judicial commission of inquiry. Not only the president, anybody who's affected there who is reviewing that report, those processes must be accelerated. Rescinding Prime Minister's decision, did we instruct the minister not to contest the court? No, we did not. All we did was to say to the minister, resolve this issue before it goes to court yourself. That's all we say. How you resolve it, we can't determine that for a minister. All we say, minister, resolve this matter before it goes to court. We should continue discussing the principles that should guide election of leadership in the ANC, but allow the structures of the ANC to start discussing the names. But such discussions should be based on the principles discussed and through the eye of the needle. Nomination will only be opened in September 2017.
Some of the contradictions in the NEC resolution. Firstly, the NEC says it supports anyone taking the State of Capture report on review, but it says legal reviews should not delay the Judicial Commission of Inquiry. The NEC says structures can now discuss candidates for the elective conference, but it says nominations for preferred candidates will only open in September. The NEC says Molefe's credentials in state-owned enterprises are impeccable, but it says Brian Molefe's appointment must be rescinded before the matter goes to court.
Some candidates whose name we already know,
yes,
that they have already started to campaign. So that which he has now announced is actually hollow. It actually is a contradiction in terms. You cannot say that for now we discuss names and that no active lobbying and asking for support should happen while it has
happened. The ANC NEC contradictions raise the following questions. Why does the ANC not await findings of the probe into Molefe's reinstatement before rescinding his appointment? And is it not justified to allow ample time for those implicated in the state of capture report to exhaust all their legal options? And what's the point of allowing structures to discuss leadership candidates without opening the nomination window? And is the ANC allowing external voices or calls for President Zuma to step down to influence the debate in the party? Joining us live in studio, Professor Sipho Siebe, political analyst, Fiso Mahlangu is resident political analyst, and Thabo Mutlea, I beg your pardon, Mutle. Thanks, Prof, is the ANC Youth League NEC member on the line. Good evening, gentlemen, and thanks so much for joining us. I mean, contradiction after contradiction. We've criticism such as speaking in forked tongues, etc., leveled at the ANC. Nothing different this time around.
Well, it's not so much contradictions. It's about trying to manage and navigate a space that you have not occupied before. For instance, the whole notion of discussion of names. What the ANC is faced with is that it is unable to instill that level of ironclad discipline to its members, to say, if we say you're not going to speak, you're not going to speak. So it sees it. This is a way of accommodating a reality that is already taking place. People are talking and people are lobbying and some people are campaigning. So that is a reality. But we also do not want to be seen to be hostile to those people, because I think it should be something that is good, that people want to volunteer to serve this country. In other countries, you always tell your children that they can be anything that they want to be. And ascending the position of the president, if you want to serve, it's not a bad thing. But the ANC needs to be taken out of its historical location of being a party under conditions that are undemocratic, where you run your affairs nicodemously. So what they need to do now is to say, let's open it up. So open it up. What you're seeing here is an attempt by Gwede or the ANC to say, let us allow the process without antagonizing people, but still say the nomination process will start at a particular time. Then that's the first one. The second contradiction that you are raising is really, we are always tested in terms of our constitutional commitments. We always say to people that you are innocent until proven guilty. But then other people have found a way around that. The way around it is, no, let's undermine that constitutional principle that says somebody has a cloud over his head. So when somebody is under a cloud, it becomes also very difficult. So what they are trying to do is to say, we understand that there is this notion of innocent until proven guilty. But when you listen carefully, you find that most of its members are guilty until they have proven themselves to be innocent. So Brian Molefe is one such case. But the bigger issue is it's a poor political management of the Brian story. So what the ANC has said that instead of this becoming a permanent state that people will use against us, let us find a way of pushing him outside, then we'll deal with him. But and while saying so, but this is a good cadre with good credentials, track record and all that, but there's already a punishment.
And I think it's just the backlash from society in how people have reacted to the reinstatement of Brian that perhaps influenced how the ANC responded to it. It's not necessarily a party position, but it is just the ramifications thereof that they're now trying to neutralize, as it was, Fiso.
I think it's very difficult for any radicalized movement fighting for the rights of Africans to become a state. In fact, in all of the countries, Prof and I know very well that revolutionary parties usually last about 20 years. In fact, South Africa had an exemplary record of a revolutionary party becoming a state, once considered a terrorist movement, becoming a government and a state. So the arrangement from the ANC, discussions within the ANC leading to government become very, very difficult. The minister, Ms. Lynn Brown, says we want black intellectuals, and she speaks out in parliament against
white monopoly capital and the lies against VR Laser, and the lies against Tegeta that everybody has been raising in this country, and the narrative that other, particularly white media, has been raising for years in this country. But the ANC, Mr. Zizikodwa, comes and says Mr. Molefe's reinstatement is unacceptable. So you hear that Luthuli House is saying this, but the ANC cabinet minister is saying this. And of course, one can say there's a difference between the party and the government. But is there a difference between the party and the government? Because this is still the ANC government. So you find that the internal dialogue and the internal channel of communication between within the ANC is very much fractured, because you get one group saying this and the other group saying this. And we shouldn't overlook personalities, because at the end of the day, it's about personality fights. It's about whose bread is buttered where. And as much as many of us respect Mr. Molefe, some members of the ANC might be jealous, or some might feel that he's not that candidate that they want. And then they make it sound as if it was the NEC voice, the NEC's collective message. And the NEC came out and said, we never released that statement. We don't know who told Zizikodwa to release that. So it's double tongue and it's fox tongue.
Yeah, self-correction, one would hope, and collective responsibility. But having said that, of course, weekend newspaper suggesting that out of the 18 members of the NEC who supported the motion of no confidence is actually a portion, or at least half of the NEC members who now want Zuma to go. Over and above that, the opposition coming out and saying that this is a crime against South Africa if NEC members stick with Zuma, the 54 of them. Can we then justify to say the ANC is on a political down spiral, or is it just the posturing from the opposition?
Yeah, we have fake news. So we have a reality where we've also decriminalized Dagga. So it is also possible that we are affected by the fumes that other people are smoking. But what is emerging is really that you have the media houses that have made it their business to mislead, in terms of knowing full well that what they're saying is not true. But what they want to do is to try to push a particular agenda, so that those who may have been doubtful about whether to vote this way or that, they are actually being encouraged to say, no, actually, the bus is already loaded, it's going in a particular direction. But when it comes to this president, for some reason, he's always able to outsmart them. He appears to be always 10 steps ahead of them. So there was these predictions, and others actually, I'm told, as it had happened even before, they had already bought champagnes, even some analysts, to celebrate the downfall of President Zuma. But what we saw, again, if one were to look at the numbers, it's also a groundswell of support, a message that says, we support you. But there are also political realities. As I've always said, that when you remove a popular president, the only reason, if you are a member of that party, is to destroy that party. And this is the best time to destroy the ANC by removing its leader, who still enjoys a lot of support. But the question that the members of the ANC had to ask, is this in the interest of our party? And if they look at that, they say, but the man is going to serve until the end of December. So why this hurry that might actually destroy the organization? So I think their action was informed also by those realities, but also by experience. The ANC continues to deal with the trauma of 2008 when the Thabo Mbeki was removed. And that trauma created the coups. And so they don't want to go through that process again. But this one will be very divisive. So I think those who are not driven by the media, and the President Zuma does not campaign in the media. He connects with members of the ANC. Those are the people who matter, and those are the people who make a difference, and they made the difference this weekend.
Yeah, well, was it overreach really in expecting ANC, NEC members to vote against their own democratically elected president in this motion of no confidence?
Well, I do believe that there is a deep external play and external forces who want the ANC divided. But I also believe that we should look within. The African proverb says, if you're going to get killed, it will be done by the enemy within. I think the facts are this. No ANC member would logically want to remove a sitting president 3 weeks before the elective conference. Why would you do that? Because if President Zuma goes today, Mr. CR17, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, would ascend and become the acting president. If he becomes the acting president until December, he then has the power and ability to strengthen the branches because he knows he doesn't have that support right now. So it is to push him into office prematurely before 6 or 7 months before the elective conference so that he can build the branches and finally by a ray of light and grace at the elective conference he can win. He knows that if the elections were tomorrow, he wouldn't win at the branches. So it's people in Mr. Ramaphosa's camp that are also pushing for President Zuma to step down because it immediately means that if President Zuma steps down, the acting president will be Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. But also I think the fact that we shouldn't overlook as well, Cindy, is the fact that the ANC is considered to be a broad church. In the end, it's not the media that decides, it is the branches of the ANC that would decide, and it is them who would elect their leader. So this is also a move of the factions. It is a certain faction of the ANC that was saying, before we even know what the policy is, let's put in Mr. Ramaphosa. And how dangerous it is to elect a leader. You don't even know what the policies are going to be. And how do you come in and act as a president and you don't even know what policies you're going to be standing for?
I don't think there was much thought in terms of, Zuma must step down, Zuma must go. What is the follow-up program or strategy, as it were? But the effectiveness of the marches and the campaigns, the anti-Zuma campaigns, clearly have not worked, even at the level of the so-called disgruntled MPs. It hasn't been effective. So the question is, how much more do you have to demonstrate and parade in the streets of the capital, etc., to try and drive a particular narrative when you know constitutionally that is wrong?
Yeah, I think one of the things that emerged this weekend, which was important and which some of us had always said, is you've had a group called the veterans and the stalwarts, who had projected themselves as caring people about the ANC. At least the NEC of the ANC has actually indicated that these are people who are conflicted. And they are conflicted in a number of ways. And one of the analysts who is probably a better analyst outside this space, Stephen Friedman, was saying that they are simply representative of a faction. And the NEC of the ANC saw them as that these are simply people who are embroiled in factionalism, and hence they cannot be called upon to assist the ANC in this tough time to move forward. And I think that in itself is a very positive move to simply see people for what they are. And secondly, what you also have is that these are people who present themselves as coming out with clean hands. If you take, for instance, the sponsor of the motion, Joel Netitshente, at a time when we needed to protect black life, when kids were being born with HIV/AIDS, when there was a stigma around HIV/AIDS, and when you had a president who was stubborn, who actually thought he knows better than the medical profession of the world, it was people like him who were supporting that type of policy that led, according to the study by Harvard, to over 300,000 lives unnecessarily. And this is a person who today can stand up there and pretend to be holier than thou. And when some of us challenged that position, they were the ones who were coming with justification that the scientists have also been wrong, reminding us about people like Galileo. So we need to also locate those people in history, because once you do that, you realize that this is more of a personal vendetta. It has nothing to do with nobility. It has nothing to do with what is good for South Africa. And what we now have is a motley of the wounded, the grouping of the disgruntled that have somehow need to pay back. It is a personal revenge that they need because of the humiliation that they suffered in the past.
Okay, so part of the contradiction, of course, is historic. Some may take it even personal to try and avenge what might have happened. But looking at the contradiction around the succession debate, I mean, that horse bolted, I think, even last year, November. And yet we told, in September, people can now issue names, but they ought to not lobby, or, there's some sort of ring fencing of what type of activities that need to happen. What's the point?
The point is to give those with more data bundles enough time to do their campaign rhetoric. The reality of the matter is people have websites. Mr. Ramaphosa's got an active website on his profile and his beliefs and values and all of that. Ministers like Ms. Sisulu are doing public talks and are addressed very presidentially. Of course, under the ANC garment, they go under invitation, under the veil of the ANC. So for that matter, people are already out there campaigning for themselves. Those who will only realize this in September will fall back on the political mileage because the gloves are off. The public display of who the candidates are is simply for the ANC to make a record and say these are people that we've put out there. But the people who know themselves to be on this race have already started running. And if they hadn't started running, the SACP, which considers itself to be very disciplined, why would it declare that it's going with Mr. Ramaphosa? Because we are not in September yet. If people are really disciplined in the Northern Cape, why would they have declared that they are going with Mr. Ramaphosa for that matter? So people are openly declaring who they are going out with. So the ones who don't put themselves out there will realize that the political mileage is already ahead. People are already running in Bloemfontein and you're stuck in Bronkhorstspruit because the journey is long. December, here we come.
All right, let's join, or rather invite Thabo Mutle, ANC Youth League NEC member. Good evening to you, Thabo, and thanks so much for joining us. All these contradictions, do you think it advances the cause for the ANC at least to come out stronger in 2019?
Thanks, Cindy, and the viewers at home. I don't think these contradictions will take the ANC anywhere. But we are very much happy with the decisions taken by the NEC over the weekend during their NEC. Amongst other things, they dealt with these external forces that are mushrooming within the ANC. And they've opened, of course, a process for debates towards the national conference, which gives opportunities to branches of the ANC to then begin discussing who do they think will best lead the ANC under these circumstances.
But are you not concerned, though, Thabo, in terms of the public perception that the ANC seems to be a party at war with itself?
Look, I don't think it is things are bad in the ANC. But that element of members of the ANC being influenced by external forces, it is there. And what the ANC needs to do at this point in time, it is to continue to persuade its members to refrain from that particular foreign tendencies that is mushrooming.
But is there a strategy, though, an action plan to deal exactly with issues that are not benefiting, albeit it's the year of OR Tambo, all of these other rhetoric that we've heard, and yet more and more it seems that the party is not imploding, but there are serious issues there?
It's very difficult, Cindy, because we all know it's a year of a conference, so comrades have got different interest towards this conference, so it will be very difficult to maintain discipline of the organization. I can cite an example where we have seen a chairperson, Derek Hennekom, who is the chair of the disciplinary committee of the African National Congress. He has been ill-disciplined several times with his utterances in the public space, which tells you that the ANC has got challenges at this point in time when we see the likes of Derek Hennekom being totally ill-disciplined. Now, we need to persuade our members, because the ANC is an old organization. It has been through turbulent times, and we are hopeful that it will survive these challenges.
All right,
with.
Tabo, we're going to keep it there, or leave it there rather. Professor Sipho Siepe, political analyst, Fiso Mahlango's resident political analyst. Thanks indeed. And on the phone line, Tabo Mutle, ANC, a Youth League NEC member. Thanks so much for watching and staying with us. I know my kids are up. They just sent me a screen grab saying, Mommy, we're watching. So thank you to everybody else who's joined us. So we take a quick ad break. We'll see you shortly.